I don't see
Anish
Anish. Let me
Anish and
message Anish.
Shubhranshu.
Let me just message both.
Okay, maybe we can start in the meantime.
Let's get started, Monali. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's knowledge dissemination workshop. We are really pleased to have all of you join us today. This knowledge dissemination workshop on economic valuation of battery energy storage systems. A study for the southern India has been conducted as a part of USAID's GTG RISE initiative, which stands for Greening the Grid, Renewable Integration and Sustainable Energy Initiative. This is a bilateral program between Government of India and USAID and has been ongoing since now 2016. As a part of this program, the basic objective was to support GOI, Government of India, in managing issues related to large-scale integration issues. It had various components, looking at planning, and analysis. So as a part of this program, we also did the national grid integration study. But the main core objective, or let's say the core piece of the work, was implemented as a part of GTG RISE initiative, where we are implementing, several 6 grid integration pilots all across the country, validating or showcasing technologies and solutions which could support grid integration in the Indian context. Associated with all these different pieces, we also undertook number of analysis, modelings, etc., which could help or support in the in making choices, or validating or making a choices in terms of what technology to choose, what makes sense, and for the Indian stakeholders. So just day before yesterday, we had the first in the series of our webinar on our battery energy storage pilot, and this is a continuation of that. In the on 20th, we shared the results of the pilot on battery energy storage system for under actual grid conditions from Puducherry, along with which is being implemented with PGCI. And today we are present here to present the results of an evaluation or the modeling which we conducted to assess the role of BESS in for ancillary services in the Indian context. The team has undertaken a very detailed analysis in order to assess, what's a typical quantum of reserve capacity which would be required for primary and secondary frequency reserve support, and so on. There was another piece which looked at the cost saving with respect to deployment of BESS. So these studies will be shared by our team, and we are really fortunate to have a really good experts talking about some of these studies. Before I move on and invite our first speaker for the day, I would quickly mention that we are recording this. We intend to share the proceedings of this webinar with all of you within a week or so. The report, a summary of the report will be available on GTG RISE website within a week's time. I think, sorry, I'm so sorry. It's already uploaded, so you will be able to check out the summary. We hope to bring in the full report also within 10-15 days, so that should also be available for your reference. And again, we have built in a certain time for question and answers. Please feel free to put your question and answers in the Q&A box, so that our moderator Shubhranshu, when he is asking the question, will be able to easily access them. So with that, let me first move on to our first speaker, Dr. Nagaraja. Dr. I'm so sorry. Dr. Nagaraja is the founder and managing director of PRDC, which stands for Power Research and Development Consultants. He has a vast experience of over 27 years in the field of power system simulation and consulting, and he is architecture and the chief mentor for the design and development of MyPower, which I'm sure many of you know about. So without further ado, let me request Dr. Nagaraja to make a presentation on ancillary services, primary and secondary responses. So over to you, Dr. Nagaraja. And can I ask Chandra to start the presentation, please?
Thank you, Manali. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you, Manali, for giving us an opportunity to work in this project. The GTJ RISE team also has supported a lot. And then, basically, we are talking about the economic valuation of the battery energy storage system, how it is going to help in the southern grid. It is a typical study for the SR, but the entire study can be extrapolated for the entire Indian grid also. Dr. Atla, can you move on to the next slide, please? We are going to discuss about the background, why actually the primary control, secondary control, various ancillary services are required, and what is the practice of that across the globe, and what are the various regulations available within India to understand. And we are also going to discuss the approach and the methodology, what are the key considerations, and how actually the complete modeling has been done for the simulation. Then we are going to find out what is the key results in the SR level based upon the various simulations that have been conducted. Then we'll try to look into the economic analysis also. Next, please. If you look at the progress of the ancillary service, I want the team to understand how was the frequency in the Indian grid. I go back to 1999, okay, sometime in 1999. Our grid frequency, at least in the southern grid, was almost about 48 hertz. In fact, there were one or two grid collapses, and there was a committee formed which was actually talking about that instead of 48 hertz, we should not go below 48.5 hertz. Subsequently, there was one more grid collapse. And then again, the committee told, let us not go below 48.75 hertz. I was thinking that at least the southern region should see 3 to 4 grid collapses in a successive manner. Then only we'll be able to see the frequency of 50 hertz. That is what actually I was thinking. But thanks to the various measures taken, and also the 2003, the ABT, availability based tariff, which was actually with a stick in order to control the grid frequency in the system, we were able to bring and improve our system frequency very close to 50 hertz today. But if you try to look into various RLDCs, they need to ensure that actually the frequency is maintained. And when we look at the reserves, primary reserve of about 4,000 megawatt in all India basis, so that actually the largest thermal power plant, when it trips, we should be able to manage it. Secondary reserve has been defined in the southern region about 1,000 megawatt, 800 megawatt in the western region, 800 megawatt in the northern region. That is how actually the various reserves have been defined. Tertiary reserve by each control area may be about 50% of the largest generating unit available in the state control area. Therefore, based upon that, various quantum of reserves have been specified. And also, it is very much essential to estimate the reserves on a day-ahead basis, depending upon what is the quantum of power being supplied, what is the total operating load. Therefore, with respect to time, we need to find out what should be the reserve. And we are going to see what is the formula being used in order to compute the reserve also. Moving forward, it is also required to have the market-based framework, because today various generating units are participating, but it may not be with any incentive. Therefore, tomorrow, if there is a market-based framework for the procurement, and then actually it may be possible for the people to participate in the secondary and also the tertiary control also. And we also need to find out, with the renewable energy penetration, we are talking about 175 gigawatt by 2022, maybe 400 gigawatt by 2030. Taking that into account, it is very much essential to find out what is the impact of the renewable energy because higher and higher penetration of the renewable energy, we are also going to lose the inertial response. The total stored kinetic energy divided by the megawatt rating of the machine, that's what we define as the H. That H is going to come down for the total capacity. Therefore, what is the impact of that? And also the renewable energy is being varying. And we also require the ramp up and ramp down. Therefore, what is the impact of that? Therefore, this is the genesis for this conducting this study. Next, please. Therefore, if you look at the requirement, basically the evaluation of the frequency response followed by the contingency, that is outage of the largest unit. In this case, Ramagundam, we can consider that as a largest unit. Also, what is the primary, secondary reserve requirements in the southern region? That is what was actually the terms of reference. Based upon that, we conducted the good amount of simulation studies corresponding to various scenarios, not just for the as-on-date network, even for the proposed network, to find out what is that renewable energy, in order to meet the renewable energy variation, what is the quantum of the BESS system that is required, and is it also going to make an economic sense? Because I always keep telling, we engineers, we are called engineers, we shake our collar telling that we are an engineer because we are both scientists and economists. Taking that into account, we need to see that it is not just a technical feasibility, there has to be an economic viability also. Therefore, even that has been analyzed in this study. Next, please. Therefore, we look at the approach and the methodology. Please go ahead. One thing very important is, following a disturbance in the grid, we need to understand what is the frequency response and how it happens. This is very important to understand here. Voltage and the reactive power, the way they are closely correlated in our power system, active power and the frequency, they are very closely correlated. As soon as a loss of load or a generation occurs, in case of a loss of a load, frequency will increase. In case of a loss of a generation, frequency will start. Therefore, the first initial fall in the frequency, whatever you are talking about, that is your inertial response. It is given by the expression h by pi f d omega by dt is equal to Pm minus Pe. Pm is your shaft power or the mechanical power. Pe corresponds to your electrical power. Therefore, the difference of that is going to have actually the inertial response. In fact, the H, which is actually defined as stored kinetic energy divided by the rating of the machine, normally is in the range 2.5 to 3 seconds. Therefore, if you take the entire southern grid of about 40,000 megawatt, equivalent machine of a 40,000 megawatt, it has got an inertia constant of say 3 seconds on its own rating. It tells that if the electrical power becomes zero, full shaft power is there, or the mechanical power or the generation is lost, and the electrical power is fully available, it takes 2h seconds for the speed to double, or speed to become zero from 50 hertz, it takes 2h seconds. That is what that h is called the starting time constant. With the inertial constant not being there, this response we need to curtail. Therefore, that is what is very important. Next frequency, what we talk about here is the point B, which we call it as the Nadir frequency. That is, what is the minimum frequency the system will go, so that the under frequency load shedding will not happen, and the frequency starts improving. That is what actually will happen because of your primary control, that is the governor true characteristic. Then comes your secondary control, that is the automatic generation control, that is actually the regulating reserve. And then comes your various non-spinning, economic dispatch, unit commitment, and all those things will come into picture. What is important for the system frequency control is, what is that Nadir frequency and what is the quasi-steady-state frequency we are able to maintain. That is very, very important. Next, please. Therefore, if you look at the various standards, IAGC 2010 talks about all governors shall have a group setting of 3% to 6%. Again, in Indian context, before the ABT and also subsequently, it was so happening that actually most of the governors were in the blocked governor mode. But now they are into the free governing mode and also participating. That is actually very important. International practice with respect to the group is about 5%. And IEGC, fifth amendment, which was introduced in the April 2018, talks about the various generating units at what capacity they should participate in the primary control. For example, all coal and lignite-based thermal generating units, 200 megawatt and above, should participate. Open cycle gas turbine and combined cycle, 50 megawatt. And hydro, because they have got a better capability to participate, okay, anything above 25 megawatt should participate in the primary control. Next, please. The other thing we are talking about is, there is a very detailed report which you can Google and then try to find out, CERC expert group report that is popularly called as 50 Hertz committee report. That talks about the various frequencies to be maintained. For example, the permissible frequency band is 49.9 to 50.05 Hertz, and which can be further tightened 49.95 to 50.05 by 2020. Therefore, various other measures have to be taken. And as part of that, the secondary control, there is one more pilot project that has happened. As part of that, actually, even in the northern region also, one of the thermal power plant at Dadri, the AGC automatic generation control was implemented. And in southern region, under the same GTG RISE project, the both Sharavati and Varahi hydro project automatic generation control is being implemented. The pilot was successful. Now, for the all India, the reference contingency for the primary response, 4,000 megawatt UMPP outage was considered. For the southern region, highest capacity plant, Ramagundam, is being considered. Now, the nadir frequency in the 50 Hertz committee report, 49.5 Hertz has been defined. Therefore, actually, we have done the studies, not just for the 49.2 Hertz, 49.5, and also 49.8 Hertz. Next, please. Therefore, if you look at the CERC expert group, there is one more thing they are talking about, the under frequency load shedding. See, very important, when a fault occurs in the system, whenever actually a major disturbance occurs, the frequency will vary, basically because of the electrical power and the mechanical power. Therefore, the under frequency load shedding has been set at 49.2 Hertz, 49 Hertz, 48.8 and 48.6 and so on in the regions. Therefore, what is important here to understand here is that whenever actually there is a large major loss of the generation, the frequency should not go, which actually is going to create the under frequency load shedding scheme. Before that, the primary response should come into picture, secondary response should come into picture. We should be able to bring back the frequency. Therefore, in the southern region simulation studies, 49.2 Hertz has been considered because in the southern region, the under frequency load shedding alarm is at 49.5 Hertz, and then at 49.3 Hertz, the end 0.2 Hertz per second rate of change of frequency, the load shedding is happening. And as part of the sensitive studies, we have also done the studies for 49.5 Hertz and also 49.8 Hertz for the quasi-steady state frequency and also the nadir frequency of 49.5, but the 49.8 is considered for the quasi-steady state frequencies. Next, please. Here we need to understand, just to have a mathematical modeling and also a bit about what actually the frequency response characteristic is being defined. In Indian context, it is defined as megawatt generation lost or the load lost divided by the change in the frequency in Hertz, megawatt per Hertz. In some of the European countries, they talk about megawatt divided by 0.1 Hertz. Therefore, in India, if you talk about, because for the 1 Hertz, in order to have the quasi-steady state frequency, the frequency response characteristic is about 11,875 megawatt per Hertz, and how it has been calculated is available very detailed in the 50 Hertz committee report. I am not going in depth into that. Therefore, we need to find out frequency response corresponding to the Nadir frequency and also the response with respect to the quasi-steady state frequency. We need to understand, and then based upon that, whole computation has been done. Now coming to the practices in USA, being a 60 Hz system, Nadir frequency is 59.7 to 59.5. Quasi-steady state frequency, at least we were not able to get the reference for that, authenticated reference. But when it comes to Europe, the 50 Hz system, Nadir frequency is 49.2 and quasi-steady state frequency of 49.82, and the under frequency load shedding in Europe is happening at 49 Hz. Therefore, before the 49 Hz, UFLS reaches for the major loss of a generation, okay, within the limit, the largest unit size, we should not allow the frequencies to go below 49.2 Hz in the European practice. Next, please. Therefore, when you look at the load response, there are two things. One is the generator response. The other one is the load response. We need to remember, again, when you go back to 1999 and 2000, there was no generator response because it was all in the block donor mode. Still, our system was able to survive to some extent. You may ask why. As electrical engineers, we should thank our load because load is a function of frequency. Therefore, in USA, they talk about 1 to 2% of load change with respect to 1% change in frequency. And 1% load change with respect to 1% change in frequency in Europe. But this characteristic depends upon composition of the load and what is the demand you are serving and what type of load, whether it is basically the agriculture pump set load or whether it is actually the air condition load, it all depends upon that. In India, a 4% change in load with the 2% change in frequency, that is what actually is considered. What it means, let us try to understand. Assume that we are operating with the 10,000 megawatt generation and I am at 50 Hz. Load plus loss is equal to 10,000 megawatt. Now our load starts increasing. Assume that the load starts increasing or there is a loss of a generation of 400 megawatt. What will happen? Frequency starts falling. But my connected load is still 10,000 megawatt. Connected load is still 10,000 megawatt, but the frequency starts falling in the expression h by pi f d omega by dt is equal to Pm minus Pe. In that expression, Pm minus Pe, there is a mismatch, frequency starts falling. Again, as I told you, we should thank our load because the connected load is still 10,000 megawatt, but because the frequency starts coming down, based upon the frequency characteristic of the load is going to come down. Therefore, it becomes, say, at 49 Hz because 2% change in frequency, 4% change in load. Therefore, at 49 Hz, there is again a load and the generation balance. Did we cut off any of the load? No, we didn't cut off any of the load, but it is basically a social justice. At 49 Hz, we are keeping all the consumers happy. All the consumers, because the connected load is still 10,000 megawatt, all the consumers are kept happy at 49 Hz. That is what actually will happen in case of a load response. Next, please. Therefore, based upon whatever the discussions we had till now, if you look at the various considerations for the primary response, IGC talks about a droop setting of 3 to 6%. International practice is about 5%. Therefore, depending upon that, whatever the droop setting has been there in the SR system has been considered in the modeling of your government systems. IGC 5th amendment talks about thermal units above 200 megawatt and above should participate in the primary control. Therefore, all those units are set. Gas units 50 megawatt, hydro units above 25 megawatt and above. Therefore, in the simulation, all these units, as per the IGC 5th amendment report, various machines were set for to participate in the primary control. Also, the CRC expert committee report, 49.5 Hz is the Nadir frequency, while the European practice is about 49.2. Therefore, even that has been considered. the single contingency largest plant in the SR, that is the Ramagundam plant, has been considered for the largest outage. The under frequency load shedding is at 49.2 Hertz. Okay, Nadir frequency has been considered as 49.2, but we also did the studies for 49.5, and the quasi-steady state frequency of 49.8 Hertz has been considered. Load frequency control, that is 4% change in the load with the 2% change in frequency. That is how actually the frequency, in fact, we call it as a power number. In the Indian context, most of the load dispatch center, we use the terminology as power number. Therefore, for the southern region with the 45,000 megawatt of peak demand, 1 Hertz change in the frequency, load response is about 1,800 megawatt. Therefore, that is what has been considered. Therefore, for 1 Hertz change in the frequency, it comes to about 1,800 megawatt. Therefore, power number, what we have considered in the simulation is 1,800 megawatt. Now, just to give a context, if you take the entire Indian grid, this power number is to the tune of almost 6,000 to 7,000 megawatt. Maybe some expert from the PASOCO will be able to comment, but it is very important to understand that interconnection of the entire Indian grid has helped us to improve the power number. In terms of that, even a 4,000 megawatt of UMPP plant is lost. Our frequency from 50 Hertz will not come down below 49 Hertz because the entire system frequency gets adjusted just because of the load response. Next, please. Now, let us also see what is the secondary control is being talked about, or the AGC. In the America, New York ISO talks about the frequency bias setting of 334 megawatts per 0.1 Hertz, okay, megawatt per 0.1 Hertz, and an estimated peak demand of 33,441 megawatt. Therefore, percentage bias for the peak is about 1%. Like that, the different ISOs have given. What is very important to understand is, even though the percentage is more or less same, the quantum depends upon what is the base load or the peak demand. Therefore, in Europe, Union for the Coordination of the Transmission of Electricity, UCTE, which is basically coordinating all the system operators in Europe, has come out with an empirical formula, which again talks about a secondary reserve. It is an empirical formula based upon actually the deterministic approach, okay, where they are able to define that as square root of A into peak load plus B square minus B, where A is, they're taking it at 10 megawatt and B as 150 megawatt. The reference for that paper is very clearly defined in the titled A Survey and Definition of the Specifications for the Secondary Control. Based upon that, if you look at the 45,000 megawatt demand in the southern region, the secondary reserve will be about 537 megawatt. That is 1.2% of the peak load. Next, please. Now, we need to understand how crucial is our governor control. Therefore, a generation installed capacity of 20,000 megawatt, because the primary response is very, very crucial. Therefore, we need to understand what is this importance of 5% or a 4% droop. 5% droop means 5% change in the frequency, power changes by 100%. Even though you are all power engineers, I just want to talk about the concept of this droop very clearly, so that actually we try to understand what is the impact of that. Therefore, if you have a generation installed capacity of 20,000 megawatt and demand met is about 15,000 megawatt, that is the generation dispatched, and droop setting is about 5 Hertz, steady state frequency is 50 Hertz, quasi steady state frequency is 49.8 Hertz, and assume that 1,000 megawatt of loss of generation occurs. Droop is 5%. Initially, we have got 20,000 megawatt of generation available, but loss of 1,000 megawatt, we have got now the 19,000 megawatt. Therefore, 5% change in frequency on 50 Hertz, it is 2.5 Hertz. 2.5 Hertz change in the frequency, if all the machines are in the governor control, primary control, 19,000 megawatt. Therefore, for the 1,000, it comes to 0.1316 Hertz. Therefore, quasi-steady state frequency becomes 49.87 Hz, 50 minus after the primary control. Therefore, frequency settles better than the target of 49.8 Hz at the end of the primary control. We need to understand governor rule, and making the machines to participate in the primary control is very, very important. Next, please.
Can I request to wind up?
Okay. Just two more slides. Next, please. Therefore, what is important in the various simulations is, in the case of the simulation studies in the southern region, okay, sizing of the BESS, if the frequency goes below the limits, has been considered. Therefore, with the primary control from the conventional units, what happens with the primary plus the secondary control from the conventional unit with the battery energy storage system, what happens? These are the various scenarios that are being considered. And when it comes to the under frequency load shedding, even the nadir frequency is also considered. And in order to have a sensitivity analysis, even the 49.5 Hz is also considered. Next, please. This is how actually the battery energy storage system is modeled, and based upon that, and how actually the international experiences in the battery energy storage systems are there, it has been found that actually most of the BESS system being practiced in US at present is for the operating reserve and also the ancillary services. Therefore, if you look at that, almost about 550 megawatt of the BESS is participating in the operating reserve and also the ancillary services in the US. The other best example is your Australian system, where actually they have got 100 megawatt. The storage system, BESS, is being installed within 100 days, but actually the performance is very well appreciated. Next, please. Therefore, having this as the background and also having the context setting, now I request Dr. Atla to continue to throw some of the results for the southern region. Over to you, Dr. Atla.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nagaraja. I'll now quickly introduce Dr. Chandrasekhara Atla Reddy, and then ask him to please continue. So Dr. Reddy is with, has been associated with PRDC since last 12 years. He's a member of IEEE and IEEE PES Executive Committee. He has several publications in international national conference and has also guided several students pursuing MTech and PhD. Chandra is also closely associated with the GTG RISE work, leading the work on AGC in this particular study. So I'll request now Chandra, Dr. Reddy, to please continue with the presentation. Over to you, Chandra. But we can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Monali. So good afternoon to all. So I will take you all to the modeling and the key findings what we observed on that. So for the modeling perspective, so we have modeled the southern region network up to 220 kV level, and all the generating units has been modeled with their details like automatic voltage regulator, governor, power system stabilizer model. So the detailed modeling has been taken up because we are modeling, running the studies like a dynamic stability studies, not the load flow studies as a basic studies. And the loads are lumped at 220 kV level, and most importantly, the analysis is targeted for the battery energy storage system. So hence BES model, which suits for the dynamic stability study, has been adopted from WECC, Western Electricity Coordinating Council standard, which has been published in SIGRE, has been considered to model the BES. And interconnection lines with the other regions has been considered as equivalent grids. Like southern region is connected with the eastern region and western region, so those has been considered as equivalent grids. As Dr. Nagaraj sir has mentioned, so loads and their load response has been considered with reference on frequency dependent load, so that the load response has been captured for the primary resource analysis. So moving on. So the system of the total, so the study with the initial study baseline study is 1819, and then we did the study for the 1819 and 2122. For the 1819 condition, so this was the installed capacity around 44,000 megawatt, that including the generation from state utilities and central state generation units. and hydro around 13,000, gas and diesel those 6,600. And the most important thing is by the time is around 33,000 megawatt wind solar generation. By now you know about it is about 45,000 plus megawatt capacity by 21-22, and nuclear. So these are the generations has been considered. And when it comes to the demand, it's about 45,000 megawatt, which was recorded in 1819. By now, 21-22, if you see last March, it was around 58,000 megawatt in the southern region in the last March. As per the study purpose, we have taken the largest thermal plant, that is NTPT Ramagundam. So plant capacity is maximum, and it is giving the dispatch after the auxiliary consumption, everything. So around 2372 megawatt has been considered as the event, contingency event. And another one is, as you know, southern region has a lot of wind and solar generations, complete region level, and considering these. Basically the solar generation, morning and evening times, a lot of changes happens in the solar generation. And looking into the historical data, we consider around 200 megawatt per minute change if it occurs into the grid, how the readiness of the reserves will support the system. So that has been analyzed. And the scheduling of the plants, RE penetration, load, import, export, all has been referred the historical data, and based on 1819. Similarly, it has been extrapolated for the future year of 21-22. And model has been developed, the dynamic simulation has been performed in the MyPower software, so which PRDC in-house developer software, and is using in the most of the utilities in India, both the transmission and distribution. Further on, the automatic generation control, which is very much essential in the reserves analysis, basically secondary reserves, and our BES model, both has been developed with the in the MyPower software. And the BES model, as I mentioned earlier, the SIGRE has published the WCC model in 2018, and that has been considered for the modeling of the assessment for the dynamic studies. What major parameters considered for the analysis are power and energy rating of BES and initial state of charge. This is the parameters considered in the modeling. Okay, so initial state of charge and rate of charge and rate of discharge from the battery, and P control logic, Q reactive power control logic, active power control logic, and current limit logic, because the battery we have to limiting of the current logic, and generator converter model. Basically, it is a power electronics converter model, active reactive power injection model. So these are the models are essential if one wants to study the BES for the dynamic studies, and hence this authorized model has been adopted. And what assumption we have made is, because we are doing the impact of BES on the grid, so we are not interested inside the battery what happens, like what is the temperature impact, internal resistance, self-discharge due to losses. Those are all the things we have assumed that, so it is the no impact comes from these consider the idea on these aspects. And another assumption we have taken is characteristics like a charging and discharging characteristics are same for the battery. In practical cases, it may differs. But only thing, as we are doing interested on the grid perspective, these are the minor things. If someone is doing on the battery assessment as such, not the grid aspect, then these will be major things. So these parameters has been considered in the modeling, and the model has been developed in the MyPower through the control blocks as I am showing here, active power control block, reactive power control block, converter model, and current limit model. In the similar lines, AGC automatic generation control has been developed in the MyPower under the simulation environment. So where you most of the people aware of, our AGC will run in the two modes, either the frequency referring to the frequency or by referring to the tie line interconnection. In this model, we have used the frequency as the one, as we consider complete southern as a single grid. And once this frequency is there, based on the bias factor, area control error will be generated, and that error controlled through the PI controller, and it will be given to the generator considering their ramp rates of the generators, and it will be monitored the actual generation back to the AGC logic, and it all has been developed under the closed loop environment. The right side, what you can see is the blocks which has been implemented to simulate the AGC operation in MyPower software. And this is about modeling what we have done it to replicate the practical system and to do the dynamic analysis. So I will take you through now the key findings. So before going to the findings, so how we divided the study is basically into the 5 categories, and these 5 cases under the different scenarios. Scenarios can be like peak demand condition, off-peak demand condition, and high RE scenarios if it is there, what is the criticality. And the studies has been done for the 2 years, 2018-19 and 21-22. And in each scenario, the case has been analyzed like if the primary reserves comes only from conventional generation, what is my situation? And if that reserve from the conventional generators comes both primary as well as secondary, please note we do not have secondary at present in India. We have primary, we have tertiary. Okay, so now if the reserves comes from the primary and the secondary, that too comes from the conventional generation, how my system responds. And in other case, primary reserves comes not only from the conventional generation, also from the BES. And on fourth case, conventional generation gives the primary and also secondary. BES start participating in the primary, but not in the secondary. The difference of the last case is the conventional generators continue to participate in the primary and the secondary, but BES is restricted to secondary. Why the last 4 and 5 cases has been performed is we want to evaluate what is the BES role, whether it is good to enable in the primary or good to enable in the secondary. So hence we did this studies based on the various discussions and inputs from the various stakeholders at the state and central level. And taking to the interesting analysis here, which the words used by Dr. Nagarajan, nadir frequency, which we are referring here is 49.2, where our frequency is going to arrest here. It won't allow the code down. So the SR outage of 2,372 megawatt has been considered. And what we did it here is, this is the case for 18-19 during the peak demand condition, where renewable penetration is 16.8% in terms of megawatt with reference to load. And the nadir frequency, we did the 2 frequencies, 49.2, 49.5. This case, what I'm showing here is 49.2. Now what has happened here is, if the frequency is 50 hertz, and a plant having 2,372 megawatt capacity, which is running at that instant, has gone outage. If that is happened, my frequency start falling. So the inertia of the other conventional generations this is the slope. If you have a good amount of inertia, so it will come like this. If you don't have the much inertia in the system, it will come like a straight line. So it has, with the availability of inertia, it has come here. Now, so to bring to the system up to 49.2, we have limited the primary response participation from the generation. For example, if you enable all the southern region generations to operate, the frequency will not come 49.2. It may go somewhere 49.6 or 49.7 only. But to see that, if you limit the number of generator to participate in the primary reserves, so once you limit, then you allow frequency go 49.2. So if that is the situation, simulates the frequency comes here, and that how much reserves are required is around 1080 megawatt primary reserves. If you restrict, the frequency goes to the 49.2. And during that condition, you can see the load response. It is not only the primary response from the generation, load also contributes, like what has mentioned by the Dr. Nagaraj sir. So 1170 megawatt load response. So with that, the frequency is arrested at 49.2. While arresting the frequency at 49.2, 2 critical roles is happened. One is the inertial response, and by the time partial primary reserves also started participating and load response. After some time, you can see that, so over the times, the full of primary reserves are deployed by this time. Around 25 seconds, complete primary reserves are deployed into the system, and frequency has been settled at 49.3. So this is the major concept which will be carry forward the remaining slides. So one is how the nadir frequency comes once you deploy it, 49.3. Please note here we have not deployed secondary or battery, only the primary, and that too restricted primary. So next case is, so we don't want to deploy anything of the primary much. So same primary we have there, and we added the secondary contribution. So the frequency which is arresting, what we are calling it is the nadir frequency, is still 49.2, but after the 30 seconds, my secondary reserves start deploying into the system. My frequency got improved from the 49.3 from previous case to 49.5 in this case, with the support from the secondary reserves. So that is the benefit to the system if we enable secondary reserves. So taking into third, if you don't enable the secondary reserve, but if you allow the BES to operate into the primary, here is the very interesting aspects which we have observed from the simulation results. You can see here, even though this inertial response, falling of the frequency is not much improved, but your frequency is not gone up to 49.2. It is arrested at 49.56. So this is where batteries started deploying their response into the primary reserves and the inertial response, because as you know, battery has mostly, it is the power electronics devices, is a gate pulsing. So it happens in the fraction of seconds, and hence the batteries participates in the primary reserve as it is reported in international studies also. So instead of going 49.2, you are better placed because you have improved a lot of frequency stability. And then 49.56 got arrested, and my overall frequency also got 49.65 settled frequency. Still, I do not have secondary contribution. If I enable primary and secondary contribution from the conventional generations and BES in the primary, you can see here. So because of the BES is operating in the primary, my frequency is improved and it is 49.56. And then from 30 seconds around, my secondary reserves also participating, and my primary reserves will be there up to 30-50 seconds. That is the time continue. After that, it will take about. So then there is primary reserves will be continually will be there. In addition to that, AGC will secondary reserves will be there, and you got the quasi study state of 49.8. Now you refer to our 50 heads committee, which has recommended for any contingency occurs in the system, any big contingency, maximum possible, you should have the frequency more than 49.5 in the Nadir frequency, quasi steady state 49.8. Taking into these two limits, we defined this is the size of the battery which is required. It is about 1057 megawatt. We did a lot of simulation studies by varying the battery, and finally we settled out this value 1057. This is the battery capacity which is required for the future 21-22 condition, in case if you want to minimize the burden from the conventional units to participate primary reserves. And taking that into consideration, now we will see one more case where if the BES participates not in the primary but in secondary, what happens? So now we are deployed primary and AGC from the convention, but BES only in the secondary. Because BES is not entering into the primary control, my frequency fallen 49.2 like earlier case, but after 30 seconds, the secondary reserves start deploying in the system, my frequency fixed up. So you can see that settling frequency, or what we call it as studies quasi state frequency, is 49.8, like previous case 49.8, but the Nadir frequency, because of the absence of BES, Nadir frequency was not much improved. That means I have not improved much the stability of the system, but I was managed the frequency to settle it. So hence, we from the simulation studies, we also some type of conclusions we made. So deploying BES in the primary helps to stabilize your system more by improving the Nadir frequency, and also brings, and because the BES is settled and available in the system continuously, it helps for the frequency to reach 49.8. This is the with the, so come when that one, if we did the studies for the 21-22 also, and here I am putting the concluding remarks without going to the detail about simulations. You can see from here slide, we have done various case studies, and what I wanted to highlight is, if you see, if you do only primary reserves and your target is to reach as per the committee report 49.8, 49.5. This is the Nadir, this is the quasi steady state frequency. In that case, you have to deploy around 2000 megawatt in the primary. So then you will get it on this. And if you take the help of the BES, please note that at any point of time, we are not mentioning grid cannot maintain, because as long as you deploy the primary reserves, grid will be stable only. But the point only here is, if you use the help of the battery energy storage system in the primary reserves, and as well as the secondary reserves, as we calculated the international practice of Europe around 605 by 21-22, then actually the requirement from the primary reserves is only 331. Most of the reserves has been deployed by the, and only with the 331 primary support, you can manage the Nadir frequency of 49.6 and quasi steady state of 49.8. So from the simulation studies, so two aspects has been targeted. One is to identify how much primary reserve is actually required for this southern system and how much secondary reserve is required into the system. And then if battery, if you are decided to utilize either in the primary and secondary, how much it is required. So those questions has been answered by these simulation studies. Taking forward, is the same like peak load condition which we have seen, and most early we be in trouble like if high RE scenario, what will happen? The studies has been found high RE condition basically which occurs in the time of different seasons. If it is the solar is more is there, it will come into the Jan Feb, and if it is the wind is more, it will come into the July and August, because southern region wind profile is more on the July and August. So considering those aspects also, the deployment of 1085 battery storage and secondary reserve 605 will limit the primary participation to 308 instead of 2000 megawatt here, and makes frequency within the limits. So this was the conclusion we made from the simulation studies. And taking forward, and initially we have discussed about what happens to my primary secondary reserves if more and more renewables added into the system and that renewables changes dynamically. So for the 21-22 scenario, if the renewables changes a combination of wind or solar, whatever it may be, so 200 megawatt per minute, whether the designed battery of 1085, is it sufficient to maintain the frequency, keep the system within the limits or not? So then this is the study we have done. So BESS started deploying instantly within the 5 seconds and 10 seconds range. And the frequency, of course, every minute continuously, the 200 megawatt, that's where the steps is happening. 200 megawatt per minute change which happens. So frequency start falling down by this 250 megawatt, all your BESS has been deployed. And further here, we also have the secondary reserves, which comes from the various sources. Please note that all the secondary reserves will not deploy at the instant when it is enabled, because depend upon the generators rampings and their response time, it will slowly deploys. And finally, after deploying the complete this primary BESS and the secondary, the frequency is settled at 49.8, which is above our limit of 49.5. So hence, this design still works good even for the high renewable penetration comes and evening and morning times. So there is no stable issues will come into picture. So the point here we wanted to highlight is not only for the events may occur maybe weekly, monthly once, something like that. But these the instance will occur every day. So that means systems should have the deployment of the reserves for every day and wherever the how many instances occurs in a day. So with this installed capacity of the quantum of things, the system will be stable over years. And of course, by 2030, if you think about 450 gigawatts, then the capacities, those things will vary. Here, this is the concluding sign from the technical studies. So you can see here, don't apply anything. And if you deploy all the reserves, because at present, we are given a conditions like more than 250 megawatt thermal, 25 megawatt above hydro has to be available for the primary reserve. So in that case, considering the around 60,000 plus installed capacity in southern region generations, around 3,500 megawatt, we are keeping a reserve for the primary reserves. Of course, at here it is deploying only 2129, but available in the grid is around 3,500. So if we use the battery of dispatch of 1085 and the secondary reserve 605, we only required 331 megawatt from the conventional units. So here the major thing is battery is providing for the inertial and primary reserves. So hence, if you take the direct calculation around 3,500, you don't keep anything 3,500, let you use for other purposes, and then only use 331. So approximately 3,000 megawatt can be released for the other things, and battery can be deployed into the primary. So that's the way the study we have made it. This is the conclusion. So I don't want to go each and every value here, but you can see the point which I'm doing. So primary reserve limiting from 2000 around to 331, and here around 308. This is what the system requires, provided if we have the primary reserve from the BESS around 1085 and the secondary reserves around 605 by 21-22. And observations from the technical study, the one and foremost important one is BESS helps to arrest the nadir frequency. This is very critical for any system when the renewables adding into the system, because as inertia is going out from for the future is. And its fast response, BES through the power electronics, taking advantage of the power electronics, it helps to support the fast arresting the nadir frequency, and also to helps to get your quasi steady state. In addition to that, because of the BES continuously, maybe even 1 hour storage capacity of this 1100 range of BES is sufficient to handle all the RE variations which occurs on a daily basis. BES support in the primary results reduce the support required from the conventional units. So that is the another advantages here. Whatever the BES, because of the so the questions can be released for the regular scheduling purpose. So with the 5% troop, what we have considered, and around 3000 megawatt of conventional capacity can be released from the frequency reserves with the support of BES. So this is what we have made from the analysis, and I request Anish to take over the economic analysis. Thank you. Anish, are you there?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Right. So we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Chandra, for the wonderful presentation. I think you have covered it. All the technical details have been covered. So what we have done is an extension of the study what Chandra just spoke about. Using the data, what he has used, using all the scenarios, what we have done is a simulation, understanding that how battery can also play a part in the primary, and whether if correspondingly the capacity which could be released, the thermal capacity which could be released, which today it's been kind of reserved, and that capacity participates in the market, how much gains we'll have as a system as a whole. So that was the primary purpose, just to determine kind of a cost benefit analysis. So what we did was, so as Chandra highlighted, almost like 3000 megawatt of 2943 or 3000 megawatt of thermal capacity could be released, and correspondingly we can use something around 1000 megawatt of battery, and that 1000 megawatt of battery could provide a similar kind of a response. So what we did was this 3000 megawatt of capacity from the southern region itself. If, say, for example, under the IGC, we have a kind of mandatory reserves as of now, 5% of all the capacity, all the schedulable capacities, it's come up, has to be reserved for primary response. And if that capacity can be released in the market, so of course, keeping the demand remaining the same, if you have additional capacity, so there will be a dip in the market, or the dip in the MCP of the prices. So you need to do a simulation of the market prices, how it behaves when an additional 3000 megawatt comes on the market. So that's what we have done. So what we did was we took all the data from the southern region, which all plants could be released in the market, and then for based on 6 states data. So this data we collected with the help of CRC through later. We collected all the data where we actually kind of took down all the actual generation, what had happened in that generation in those 6 states, what has been the on a 15-minute basis. So for each of those 15 minutes, what was the actual generation from each of the generating stations, what was the demand recorded or actual demand met by each of these kind of states. And then what we did was, of course, did a almost kind of a Meridot dispatch with a constraint simulation. So all the technical constraints with ramp, and as well as I would say technical minimum. So everything, those were constrained, and then we did a kind of a LP formulation to arrive at a marginal cost. Now, this is equivalent to a kind of a market cost simulation with the IEX or the PXLDAS. So except that, of course, for the 6 states, what we imagine, there will be a centralized kind of a dispatch for that. So for this, so equivalent amount of MCPs discovered for each 15-minute prices. For each 15-minute blocks, what we did was we calculated the overall system cost for that particular year. So we calculated that, and we calculated based on the actual what was the system cost for these 6 particular states, because we had the actual generation, we had demand made, everything. So we calculated, we compared both the system cost when we saw that there was something around 3 paisa dip on an average on the MCPs for each of the blocks. So if an additional 3000 megawatt of thermal capacity participates in the market, which are getting released from the southern region. So what happens is the MCP on an average for each of those 96 blocks in a year, what it happens, the MCP on an average comes down by 3 paisa. So what is that value of the 3 paisa is, of course, the 3 paisa multiplied by the volume which is taking place in the market. So that we calculated. So that is the benefit what we calculated for release of this 3000 megawatt. Now we compare that with the prices, which is, if you go to the next slide. Right. So you will see the below graph, which talks about with additional conventional capacity and without the additional conventional capacity. I was talking about this 3 paisa, which is marked in the yellow. So there is a dip in the MCP on an average by 3 paisa to meet the overall demand. Now the embed system cost without that additional capacity for 1 year, it's almost like 89,521 crores, whereas with embed or with this additional capacity is coming out to be 86,000 crores. So if you see 86,365 crores. So basically what happened was almost there is a benefit of 3,156 crores for that particular year, what we simulated. So this 3,156 crores when compared with, if we keep a 1200 megawatt of battery on a standby basis, even for providing primary reserves, what we calculated is something around the AFC comes out to be 1,082 crores or 1,100 crores if you take 0.9 crore per megawatt kind of a AFC, which is derived again from, say, for example, a 1 hour battery of 5.5 crores per megawatt. Even if we take that, the cost has come down probably 20% lower in today's rate. But even if we take that, it's almost like the levelized AFC is coming out to be 1,100 crores. So it's almost the benefits is 3 times than what the cost is. So that's what we wanted to kind of show or demonstrate, that there could be merit when we actually think or system operator or regulator can actually do the modeling for the entire country, and whether this same phenomenon can be replicated across all regions or can be confirmed with all regions. Then it of course makes a real sense that batteries could be deployed and the reserves, which is the mandatory reserves under IGC, that probably could be released, and therefore the benefits of which will get kind of passed on to the consumers, and therefore the MCPs comes down. So that was primarily the purpose of doing this simulation. Of course, this study needs to be kind of, I would say, validated by all other regions as well. This is just limited to the southern region. So that's the limited kind of conclusion and key findings what we have from the study. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. Looking forward to interacting with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anish. I think we have a few minutes. This is Shubhranshu here. We have a few minutes left for Q&A, and there are quite a few interesting questions there. So let me start by picking up a few. Dr. Nagaraj, there are a few for you. One of the interesting questions is, you did mention the sizing of primary reserves based on loss of generation, loss of the biggest generation, side generation. What about the possibility of one of the high power HVDC lines going out? Is that something which is considered in primary reserve sizing? For instance, the 6 gigawatt Champa-Kurukshetra line.
This study was done in the southern region, southern region, the HVDC capacity is 2,300 megawatt. Therefore, what actually has been done in our study here is Ramagundam, because the HVDC capacity maximum is 2,300 megawatt only. But if at all you need to look at the entire Indian grid, because actually then 4,000 megawatt is there, but the HVDC capacity of 6,000 megawatt from the northeast to the northern region, if you want to consider, then you may have to look at the outage of that also. But at present in the northern region, the Indian grid as a whole, we are considering about 4,000 megawatt.
Right. So this is one more clarificatory question on the primary frequency response, whether it was considered an RGMO or FGMO basis.
No, it is a free governing mode. Okay, but the RGMO to some extent, based upon the characteristic how they are using it, was used. But Atla, can you just comment on that? Because I remember that is all the machines who were actually running in the free governing mode were actually enabled.
Yes, sir. All are considered under the free governing mode, sir, with the droop characteristics only.
Right. Right. I think there is there's a group of questions which is relating to why we did it for the southern region. So part of the answer, I think, is availability of data and leveraging something which was already done in the past from a data availability standpoint. But I think there is a question on the on the construct from Mr. Narasimhan, which is around whether a study of primary and secondary response using batteries is in isolation for the southern grid is adequate. Is that the way to look at it? Because the entire grid is one, and you would get primary response from other generators in the region in any case. So what was the rationale for doing it just for southern grid, and is that a good way to look at it?
Pattu, I think this answer can be by yourself, because technically we cannot comment on that, sir, because it is interconnected. However, this southern grid, when we modeled, we consider the other grids also equivalent generation points. But of course, we cannot directly tell about the replicate to the India level. But only thing is, it clearly tells about the procedure, and if the size of the system is up to this level, this is what the battery which is required for the system.
Right, and one of the sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Understand is
I think we lost him. Oh, yes. Sorry, your voice is breaking, sir. Sir Nagaraj, sir, your voice is breaking.
Although maybe to India and try to find capacity requirement in take India more, but that becomes a separate.
Right, and there is one more clarificatory question. Sorry, yeah, there's just one more clarificatory question, Chandra, Dr. Atla, you could address this. what is the level up to which transmission network was modeled? Is it 220 kV or?
Yeah, we have modeled 220 kV, 400 kV, and 765 in the southern region. So equivalent of the downstream, everything has been equivalent model has been connected at the 220 kV side. So basically, the 220 kV network, everything is there in the model.
Perfect. Now, there are a lot of questions around was wind and solar and renewable energy sources also considered in any form?
Yeah.
So that's
yeah. So wind and solar farms has been modeled as a dynamic equivalent models in that. So it is not modeled as a equivalent. So it is modeled like a 100 megawatt plant. With that, the dynamic characteristics, it has been modeled like similarly solar. Or renewables has been modeled here because we need to capture their dynamic behavior.
Perfect. I think those are the set of questions, and there's a lot of questions. I think it came in early around economic value of deploying. Are we looking at just the technical impact of how much battery is required from a primary or secondary construct, or are we also looking at the value? And that I hope got answered when Anish presented the findings. But just to clarify, again, this is not trying to answer all questions. This is just trying to see what is the effect of batteries providing primary and secondary frequency response in the regional construct. We acknowledge the fact that this is not ideal. This had to be done for southern region because the data was available with SRLDC. It wasn't necessarily SRPC. It wasn't necessarily available all India wide. And we had to get that permission to be from CERC to use this data. CERC had to request this from SRPC. So thank you to SRPC, SRLDC, and CERC for helping out with the data availability for this study. So we could have obviously done a better job had the All India data been available, but it's not at this point. So that's one. And the other thing is, of course, in terms of the cost findings and the economic findings of the study, what is coming out very clearly as a conclusion is the effect of batteries in the primary domain itself. While batteries have been deployed for secondary frequency response, and hopefully with regulatory changes or changes in regulations in the ancillary services domain in India, batteries will find a place on its own from a secondary frequency response standpoint or frequency regulation standpoint. The effect on primary is turning out to be very, very instructive. And this is something which I think is one of the findings of the study which needs to be considered seriously, given that it has the potential of unlocking the the fact that we don't let our plants go beyond the rated maximum is something which is of economic consideration. It has an lost economic value, and the batteries could enable that to be released. So that is coming out as fairly economically advisable or feasible in the context of deployment of batteries. So thank you very much. That was that's in a nutshell what we have. Of course, we've released the study findings, and we will release the recording of this session also shortly, and we'll have it on our website. Let me, since we're on the top of our time, let me quickly thank Dr. Nagaraja in particular. Always a pleasure listening to you, Dr. Nagaraja. Feels always like we go back to our engineering classes and have a refresher. So thank you for walking us through the concepts first, setting the context, and of course being the lead for this analysis. Dr. Atla, Chandra, this was this took a lot of effort. We all know from a data perspective, from a modeling perspective, and the back and forth with regards to presenting this in terms of findings with all the key stakeholders. So thank you very much. This was a great session again. Anish for anchoring the economic modeling piece, again from a market simulation and in terms of actually bringing out the benefits, it's, I think, come out fairly clearly. And it's not, as I said, a study to answer all questions, but give us some directions, and of course, more and provide us thought for more in-depth studies in the future. But it's certainly directionally providing us some indicators. So with that, and of course, many thanks to USAID and Monali in particular for being the guiding light for this pilot also. And of course, for POSOCO for being the nodal agency for all our pilots, and of course, providing us direction all through. So thank you very much to all the participants and the presenters. With this, I'd like to bring the session to a close.
Thank you.
Could we also ask the participants to switch on your cameras, that we could take one picture for the social media?
Requesting all the presenters to switch on their cameras, please.
Basically, all panelists.
Yes, please. Dr. Nagaraja, if you could please
Dr.
switch on your camera.
Nagaraja. Yeah. Anish, we can see you. Shubhranshu.
You can't see Monali.
We
Oh,
can't
yeah,
see
I
Monali
forgot
though.
to
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Bhupi, Kakuli, Prateek,
Suni sir,
Mr. Suni.
Dr. Nagaraja.
Dr. Nagaraja, yes. Can't see. Bhupi, let us know when you're done.
Dr. Nagaraja. Trying one more time.
Never mind. Let's, yeah.
Yeah.
Bhupi, let us know.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are done.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thanks
so much.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.